Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of Sora's ability breakdown from Kingdom Hearts 3. In the last video I covered Sora's action abilities that enhance his fighting skills while also giving us some critiques here and there. So in this video I will break down Sora's mobilities. What are mobilities? Mobilities are just KH3 version of the growth ability mechanics from KH2 but without having to unlock them from a form. Some of Sora's mobilities are on by default at the start of the game, which I think was a great way for making traversing through early game a little better, while in KH2 Sora had to run from point A to point B with little to no movement in early game except for using Valor Form as a faster movement. So now that you're all caught up, let's begin breaking down the mobilities and see how well they do for Sora. Here we have High Jump. It costs 2 AP and it allows Sora to jump even higher than normal. Okay, I want to be proven wrong and I am allowing someone to prove me wrong on why KH3 even has High Jump. But before I get into that, let me show you some of the KH games that made High Jump useful and not just have it there to serve little to no purpose at all. What was High Jump useful for in KH1? Well, let's see, jumping up higher platforms that met the max height Sora could reach. It's quite obvious without High Jump, Sora would not be able to reach a ledge that is higher than his base jump, so we'll equip it to reach higher up ledges, which gives High Jump a reasonable purpose to be in this game. Here's another example of High Jump being useful in another situation, like using it to jump over Curtsisa's horizontal attack, which works really well in this fight, because without High Jump, Sora would just keep getting bodied by that attack over and over and over and will not stand a chance against Curtsisa. See, I told ya. So why do I have a huge problem with KH3 High Jump? Well, KH3 High Jump does not seem to fit anywhere, and by that I mean it gets outclassed by one main mechanic that is used throughout the entire game, and that is the wall running mechanic. I went to everywhere trying to find an area where High Jump would be needed, but could not find a spot in anywhere where High Jump would be needed because whatever item or lucky emblem I would want to get would be too high for High Jump to reach because you could just run up the wall instead. High Jump is so useless in this game that you can pretty much run up any wall that is flashing, making the wall running mechanic the new High Jump for Sora. Dream Drop Distance shares the same fate with KH3 being that the Osaka team developed Dream Drop Distance. Look at this. Now why would you ever need High Jump in both these games when you can just kick dive up the wall and Dream Drop Distance and run up the wall to reach what you desire in KH3? It's not like High Jump will make the character jump that high anyway because it stops short of the ledge they are trying to reach. Heck, not even Double Flight can reach this ledge here. The only time I really needed to use the High Jump ability was in this section of the Caribbean world, but that's about it. KH2 FM is a perfect example of its growth ability mechanics. In Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix, they added a dungeon called the Caverns of Remembrance where they made the players use their mobilities aka growth abilities to get through certain areas that require Sora to use those growth abilities to make it from point A to point B. You had your High Jump ability to reach higher ledges, Quick Run to dash across large gaps, Aerial Dodge for getting a second jump to reach higher platforms, and lastly, you had Glide for getting across bigger gaps. That is how you make your toolkits useful in your games. I thought that was a great way to make each growth ability shine and have a purpose to be there, while in KH3, High Jump is just there to be there. So if anyone would like to prove me wrong in the comments section and give me a really good reason why KH3 even needed a High Jump to begin with when you can just run up the wall, please prove me wrong. Before I continue this breakdown, if you know more about the abilities that I mentioned from here on out, feel free to throw in your point of view on what you found useful about the abilities that I mentioned. I will throw in my point of view of how I feel about such and such abilities in this game and how they work, and after you have listened to what I have mentioned and you have something you want to add, please do so if you want to correct me. All I ask is that you do it in a respectable manner. Thanks. Next we have Double Flight. It costs 2 AP and its purpose is to let Sora jump twice while mid-air. Double Flight is an ability that has been featured in Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, and Birth by Sleep 0.2 as a secondary jump similar to aerial dodge in Cage 2 but without the guard properties. In Cage 3, Double Flight is given to Sora as a bonus reward after defeating 3 Frost Servants in Arendelle. I actually had trouble trying to figure out what use could Double Flight be in this game since wall running pretty much has Sora covered when it comes to reaching other spots. So I went to Reddit with this question to see what others found useful about this ability, and after reading their replies, it started to make sense why Double Flight was in this game. Double Flight was an ability in other Cage games that helped the player to traverse the other spots that their high jump couldn't reach. In Cage 3 it can be used the same way, but it can also help Sora recover himself in case he accidentally walks off a ledge, which can save you the long trip of having to climb back up from where you fell from. This is also possible in Cage 2 FM, allowing Sora to double jump after walking off a ledge. Sadly, this is not possible in Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, and to my surprise, Birth by Sleep 0.2 were not able to double jump after walking off a ledge, which shocked me being that this was close to Cage 3 mechanics. Now before I move on, I would like to showcase something that I discovered while using Double Flight on the day Cage 3 release. If you use Double Flight just as Sora is about to touch the ground and you move Sora a little with Glide or Air Slide, you can get out a second Double Flight. Not sure why this happens, only thing that comes to mind is that the game thinks Sora is jumping off the ground even though Sora never touched the ground. Maybe the forward collision is a little above the ground model itself. Does this make Sora go a little higher? Yes it does, which is why I use it by the slide normally before using this glitch to show you that this glitch indeed takes Sora higher past this line. I was even able to keep up the Double Flight as long as I wanted and I was still able to get out a second Double Flight. Not sure if this has any purpose, but it's still pretty cool though. Next we have Dodge Roll. It costs 3 AP and its purpose is to dodge out of harm's way. Okay, here is a little backstory to Dodge Roll. Dodge Roll has been in every Kingdom Hearts game throughout the entire series, mainly used by Sora. It was used in Cage 1, Cage 2 FM locked behind limit form, and not in Cage 2 vanilla, and I don't know why, but moving on, Dream Drop Distance, Recoded, and so on. Dodge Roll is a great source of movement in Cage 1, which is the most used movement in speedruns for getting around quickly. Cage 2 FM Dodge Roll on the other hand isn't used as much in speedrun as a movement source since Quick Run is a faster movement for getting around, while Dodge Roll has a small cooldown after the roll compared to Cage 1 Dodge Roll where it felt like Sora could chain his dodge roll without so much as a cooldown lag. It does make up for it by having a decent iframe window for dodging attacks with large hitbox at max level. Dodge roll in each Cage game worked in different ways, making the player either time their dodge or not time their dodge at all. I'm looking at you, Birth by Sleep. So how does dodge roll work in Cage 3? Well, it works pretty well while also having a decent iframe window that is not too nerfed and not too busted for the player to blindly roll around to avoid being hit. Each attack in Cage 3 is designed to make the player really time their dodge, which seems to be showcased in each super boss really well, letting the player know that they can't just spam dodge roll through every attack in these fights like they could in Birth by Sleep. I am actually glad that the Osaka T balanced the dodge roll mechanic the right way and learned from the last game. I find it way more fun and satisfying to dodge a boss attack with more effort and timing because it makes the person that you are fighting more of a challenge with a well balanced dodge system than dodging every attack for free without being punished for mistiming a dodge. I almost forgot to mention that Sora can also dodge while mid-combo to get out of the way of an attack that is coming at him at the same time Sora is getting off an attack, which comes in handy in tight situations. Also, I can't let this slide, but how does Sora obtain dodge roll from Goofy? I can understand Donald giving Sora the fire spell, but Goofy giving someone a somersault with no effort? Sora learned how to dodge roll in Cage 2 FM from limit form with some effort, but obtaining a somersault from thin air in Cage 1? I guess the same could be said about him finding high jump in a chest inside of a well. Moving on. This ability here is Air Slide. It costs 1 AP and its purpose is to let Sora dodge an enemy's attack while airborne. Air Slide is an ability that has been used in a few Cage games in the past. At the start of the game, Air Slide will be available for Sora by default and can be stacked later on for better effect as you progress. Air Slide has some pretty good uses that can help Sora out, like dodging an enemy attack while airborne, especially if the attack is unblockable to Sora, while also having a decent invincibility windows for dodging through an attack hitbox if the Air Slide is stacked, that is. Air Slide is also great for getting as far away from your attacker to keep your distance to get out of harm's way in case your attacker is being really aggressive. Now, Air Slide is not just for dodging attacks, but it can also be used as a movement source for getting around faster or clearing gaps until you learn Glide later in the game. A cool thing about Cage 3 Air Slide is if your timing is correct while using Air Slide while also going up a hill, you can chain together multiple Air Slide, which has been used in speedrun as a way to keep up the movement, which I have tried myself, which is a little tough to do, but I managed to pull it off. Now, even though Air Slide is a great tool to have in Cage 3, it has one annoying problem that holds it back, and that is the end lag that comes with it. For those who may be familiar, Days and Recoda had an Air Slide tool in their handheld games. But what made their Air Slide better than Cage 3 and Birth by Sleep Air Slide? Simple, it had zero end lag because they went with a simple Air Slide that didn't need to have a fancy spinning animation at the end before you could set up another Air Slide. Heck, even Cage 2 Quick Run has the end lag where Sora would spin at the end of the dash and land on the ground before he could set up another Quick Run, which makes no sense. Now there is a way past the end lag, and that is by attack cancelling before the end lag starts. I like to use Quick Slide while performing this trick since it seems like Sora can get off another Air Slide with this setup. Also, before I move on, here is the footage of what Cage 3 Air Slide should be like, which mods helped improve. I don't take credit for the mod or the valid form you see here. It would be so cool if each person who modded this game got a job at Square Enix because they do an amazing job at what they do. This ability here is Aerial Dodge. It costs 3 AP and its purpose is to dodge an attack with a spinning dodge. Now I know what we're all thinking when the word Aerial Dodge comes to mind, but sadly it's not that kind of Aerial Dodge that Cage 2 had. Cage 3 Aerial Dodge was completely different from Cage 2. Instead of double jumping to dodge or parry attacks, Sora's Aerial Dodge is a miniature version of Air Slide with a spin at the end of the dodge. Also, Aerial Dodge will only work if Sora is in battle. Frankly, I do not like this ability, and I will be happy to explain what is so bad about Aerial Dodge in this game. And no, it is not because it is not like Cage 2 Aerial Dodge, so let's just get that out of the way. My reason for not liking this ability would be that it lacks distance when it comes to wanting to get out of a tight situation. Yes, it has a decent iframe windows to it, but it fails at getting Sora as far away from its attacker. Aerial Dodge almost felt like Aerial Dodge in FF7 Remake. To show you what I mean, here are some examples of dodging in FF7 Remake. Now look at each character's dodge animation closely here. When I dodge this attack with Cloud, I feel like I'm getting a decent distance to make the dodge. Now here is Tifa's dodge in a tight situation. She seems to get out of the way of this attack just fine with no issue. So what about Aerith's dodge? Well, her dodge has her to do with Spin Hop, which can dodge this attack, but her timing is slightly tight while trying to dodge his trample attack, while Cloud and Tifa's dodge timing is better and covers more ground with little end lag. And speaking of end lag, Aerial Dodge has one of the worst end lags ever. It's so bad that even after Sora has fully come out of the spinning animation, it will still be on a cooldown. I was able to press square 4 times before I could get another Aerial Dodge to activate. That's just how bad it is. Dream Drop Distance Air Slide also had this same problem, and it was not even Aerial Dodge, just an Air Slide. Why does every aerial evasive ability need to have a fancy twirl to it? It does nothing but hold the player back and giving the opponent the upper hand to catch them in a trap. Another reason Aerial Dodge is one of the worst mobilities ever will be that it replaces your Air Slide, and if you wanted to flee from a fight with Air Slide, you'd be denied that Air Slide until the command turns blue, which I'd rather keep off of Sora and stick with something that has iframes while also covering more ground than Aerial Dodge. It's bad enough Aerial Dodge is forced on you during your first encounter with Darkseid, underwater when traversing while also fighting Lightning Angler, and the pre-final fight against Goatnort. I suspect they knew this was a bad ability and knew no one would use it as much, so they had it forced on Sora during those 3 scenarios. So if you ever wondered why you're not air sliding in battle, that is why, and it is best if you unequip Aerial Dodge and just stick with Air Slide instead. Next on the list is Glide. It costs 1 AP and its purpose is to let Sora ride the wind. Now I could sit here and talk about all the cage game Glide has been in, but that would take up way too much time and I'd rather not stay on the same topic for too long just like I did the other abilities unless there's something worth mentioning, so I'll try to keep it short. Each cage game had their own set of rules when it came to using Glide. In Cage 1, Glide was really slow but was great for clearing gaps to reach other spots to collect treasures until Sora learned Super Glide, giving Sora the option to use his normal Glide or Super Glide, which can better Sora's movement in late game. In Cage 2, Sora also had the Glide ability as well, but sadly it was locked behind Final Form, which took way too long to grind for. Each time Sora leveled up Final Form, his glide level would increase until Sora could infinitely glide as long as he was on a flat surface, or his glide would get cancelled while going up a staircase, which was also a common thing that happened in Cage 1 as well. Also, whenever Sora would bump into an object or a wall while gliding would not cancel Sora's glide animation, whereas in Cage 1 bumping into a wall would cancel Sora's glide. This was also a thing in Birth by Sleep, but instead of having an infinite glide without the walls dropping the character's glide, you could keep up your glide even if the character's model was low to the ground or if the character was going up a staircase, whereas in Cage 1 and Cage 2, the game would just drop the character's glide in a heartbeat. In Cage 3, glide is learned after the large mob fight in the Keyblade graveyard, which seems to have a super glide effect attached to it by default. Glide would be your best source of movement in late game for getting around faster. It can also help out while searching for lucky emblems which are scattered throughout each world. Glide just makes the hunt less painful to do instead of air sliding your way around to find them. Cage 3 Glide also follows the rules of Birth by Sleep Glide, allowing Sora to not only glide infinitely but also glide up slopes and staircases with no chance of the game dropping Sora's glide. Glide can also be great for getting out of tight situations to get to a safe spot to take cover or flee from a fight, assuming you are not trapped in the fight like I was here. One tiny issue I have with Cage 3 Glide would be that it has a slow startup before Sora can begin to glide. Right as Sora jumps, it takes him a second before he can glide since the glide button is mapped to the same button as the jump button. One thing they could have done was have glide work similar to Cage 2 Glide, where Sora could levitate in place by holding the square button but was not allowed to move off just one button, but instead had to be in motion by tilting the left analog once to start the glide movement. That would have been a much better way to handle glide in Cage 3, and they wouldn't even have to take glide off the circle button either, but instead have glide start by pressing circle while moving to get the glide out faster. Boom, done. Now there is a neat trick to getting glide to come out faster. At the top of Sora's jump, switch the keyblade while holding down the circle button. Switching the keyblade while holding down the circle button will reduce the slow startup to glide and will make the glide come out instantly instead. Give it a try when you get the chance. Here we have Wall Kick. It costs 1 AP and it lets Sora kick off the wall to set up another action. Wall Kick is very similar to Kick Dive from Dream Drop Distance as a flow motion maneuver for getting around or setting up flow motion attacks by using the environment around him to its advantage. Kick Dive will let Sora infinitely jump up walls or buildings non-stop, allowing Sora to reach higher grounds. Kick Dive also lets Sora needle dive at a faraway target which had a multi-hitbox to it, following it up with a downward slash. And if Sora super jumped out Kick Dive, he could perform the shot dive attack, hitting multiple enemies around him by slamming the keyblade downward from above. The way Wall Kick works in Cage 3 is pretty much the same as Dream Drop Distance Kick Dive. Sora could bounce from wall to wall, which could be used as a source for speed if you were in a small area. Wall Kick can also be used to set up full motion attacks like Sonic Cleave and Sonic Slash. Personally, I don't see myself using Wall Kick as much like I'm doing right now in this video, and only for this video because it is not worth getting bodied by something for. These two I will be doing together. It costs 1 AP and it lets Sora spin around a vertical or horizontal object to knock enemies into the air. Okay, let's just get all of this out of the way. Every mobility in Cage 3 except aerial dodge were featured in Dream Drop Distance as a flow motion. Let's talk about pole spin and pole swing in Dream Drop Distance a bit. If you wanted to set up a pole spin, you had to air slide into a vertical pole in order to activate this flow motion to set up various of attacks after. Pole swing also required the same action to be done, but instead pole swing will let Sora swing underneath any horizontal object to grab any foe to activate Wheel Rush finisher, which seems to whiff during the diving finisher. So how do both of these flow motion work in Cage 3? Well, they work the exact same way. To use pose spin, Sora could air slide or air step into a vertical pose to spin around it while also pulling in his target to set up buzzsaw or any flow motion attacks after. Pose swing works the exact same way. After Sora air slides into a horizontal pole, Sora will swing underneath the pole to grab enemies from underneath him to perform wheel rush to knock his enemies airborne, which works a lot better in Cage 3 compared to Dream Drop Distance pose swing. That is about all I can add to these two abilities because they do the exact same thing but in different ways, and right now I really sound like a broken record player, to be honest. Hang in there, we have 2 more to go. Here we have Super Jump, and it costs 2 AP and it allows Sora to catapult into the air. Super Jump is once again a flow motion feature in Dream Drop Distance used to catapult Sora up buildings to reach higher spots and yada yada yada. Cage 3 Super Jump works the same way as Dream Drop Distance, allowing Sora to catapult off an object to set up flow motion attacks. But you heard me say that way too many times in this video, so I will spare you the details. You're welcome. Now I went on Google to do a little research on Super Jump in Cage 3, and for whatever reason on the Cage wiki page it says that once you have used Super Jump, it can no longer be used again off the same jump like you could in Dream Drop Distance, which is somewhat true if you were just doing this off a normal wall, but still wrong, and I'll explain why. After playing around with Super Jump, I noticed that Sora can still set up multiple Super Jumps even if he hasn't landed on the ground, which will only work if he is running up a wall or building. I will never understand why the Cage wiki page didn't mention the part where Super Jump can be used multiple times as long as he's running up a surface that will activate his flow motion after pressing circle to Super Jump. He can even wall kick off the wall into his Super Jump as many times while running up a surface by pressing square, just like he could in Dream Drop Distance. If you didn't know about this in Cage 3, well now you know. Lastly, we have Super Slide. It costs 1 AP and it allows Sora to dash at a great distance while in flow motion for a short period. Super Slide was a flow motion feature in Dream Drop Distance that lets Sora dash from walls to cover more ground while also being useful on rail surface for greater speed. In Cage 3, Super Slide can be activated while grinding on the rail by pressing square, and since I forgot to mention this in the wall kick section, you will need to have Super Slide on as well in order to dash from wall to wall. My bad. A cool thing about Super Slide in Cage 3 are the invincibility frames that came with it. If you are on a rail in Monstropolis and you time your Super Slide correctly, you can Super Slide right through the lightning bolts coming at Sora. This was not a thing in Dream Drop Distance since any flow motion movement Sora did was guaranteed to leave Sora open no matter what flow motion movement he was doing. Well, that about wraps up this mobility breakdown. Please do let me know in the comment section what info or tricks you know about the abilities I mentioned in this video. And if I am missing anything info-wise about the mobilities in this video, let me know. I am all ears. Like I said at the beginning of the video, do it in a respectable manner and we are all good. Until next time, thanks for watching.